as human beings, have the tendency to split sexuality of ourselves as something separate. Sexuality is separate from who you are in daily life. So you have the sexual you and the non-sexual you in a way. But everything we see reflected in sexuality, we see reflected basically in our whole being. Sexuality is not something only from the sexual organs. Sexuality is an all over experience, an all over part of ourselves. It's part of being physical. And the expression of the physical in many different layers and many different ways. So the first thing, what is the difference between sexuality and sensuality? And is there a difference? So to be sensual, that means basically that all the senses are open. And when we talk about sensuality, that means that, if we are touched by the air, or touched by the sunlight, or touched by another person, that we feel the bliss which is there in the touch. Because every touch is bringing forward bliss, is bringing forward joy. When we very much are in our own center, if we don't resist. And again, in touch, we see this, if we are touched by another person, or we see that another person is going to touch us, the amount of quick decisions which are made by the system and by the mind, the amount of little doors which get locked and other doors which get opened, depending on the situation, is amazing. If you just, imagine that you hug a friend and just see, take one friend in your thoughts and just see what is happening in your system. How difficult this is. How difficult it is to be totally vulnerable, open, natural in the intimacy which is coming forward when we hug somebody. When we touch somebody. So, and this kind of basically, when we look into this, it also brings forth and makes very clear how unsafe, how vulnerable we are in the whole area of intimacy, sexuality, sensuality. So, and part of what is coming forward maybe as reflexes, as decisions, as an attitude in how we kind of move into touch is connected with how we are looking upon our own sexuality. What is our own sexuality? Do we know this? Do we really know our own identity or identities on a sexual level? Or is it more that we kind of, have a kind of programming in how it should be, how we should behave, how we should express, what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad? And it's so often, when we look to our sexuality and how we express it, that it's just so adjusted to the idea of what is right, how it should be expressed, how you should be, how you should feel, how you should respond, what is normal, what is not normal. So if somewhere there is masks, if somewhere there is an ego, it's in the whole area, the whole level of our sexual expression. It's incredibly difficult to be playful, open, relaxed, trusting. So easily we feel rejected, awkward, shameful. And again, this is not only kind of on a personal level, but this is also on a cultural level. There's so much rules, dictations around sexuality connected with gender. How should a female be? How should a male be? How should a male not be? And how should a female not be? It's especially about the not being, what's not allowed. How could we reach out? And that's one area. And so why are there so much difficulties? What is this? Why is it so difficult to just be natural, relaxed, open, and just accept whatever feeling is coming forward in whatever moment, with the freedom to express it or not to express it? Why are we in such a fight also with our feelings? What's allowed and what's not allowed? Our expression, what's allowed and what's not allowed? How we should be, what kind of picture we should fulfill. And again, so often with this picture, what is fulfilled, what is on the background is rejection. We get rejected. We are wrong. We are bad. It goes very deep. And it's basically a reflection of the struggle we have on daily life of survival. But a very clear one when we look into it. And it has a history. There is a history there. There is a history through generations of sexual trauma, sexual suppression, sexual repression. So when we talk about trauma, it's very important kind of not to leave out sexuality, because this is where we are often most vulnerable and most deeply traumatized, even without knowing. Not knowing, not knowing how to give form to yourself. So, how you give form to yourself is dependent partly on your partner. So, what we do when we have a sexual relationship, we tend to fulfill our partner's needs, but not looking really to our own needs. Or we tend to look only to our own needs and not being able to really see the partner's needs. And so often, when there's a longer relationship, what you see, what is slowly forming, is a structure in which we can express sexuality together. And this structure is set. This is how we do it. This is how we express. This is the freedom we have where we are able to express our feelings, our sexuality. So, how much is there talked about this? How much do we really talk about our sexual feelings, about our sexual dreams, about the sexual backgrounds, with our partners? It's very vulnerable. It's difficult to talk about. It's really difficult. And so often, when you work with people and you work with couples and you ask about sexuality, it's like two separate islands who are sharing something, and it's always good what they share. If you ask, how, unless there is really a deep problem and there's no sexuality or whatever, but most of the times, if you ask, you know, how is sex, they say, great, good, no problem, no problem. And then when you look a little bit more deeply, so which is asking the next question. So are you able to communicate about your feelings together? And then often what you see is water burning, difficult, vulnerable, difficult to really communicate. Of course, you can say maybe to each other what you like and what you don't like, but to talk about insecurities, vulnerability, conflicts is difficult. And what I said before, sexuality in itself is an all over movement if it's open and if it's free. And it means that there is a strong relationship between head, heart, and pelvic. It's something of the whole body. It means that thinking is involved, creativity is involved, heart is involved, feelings is involved, love, care, compassion is involved. All of this is involved. Lust, desire, all of this is involved. All our senses are involved. Smell, taste, hearing, sight, all involved. All connected. And which means that, there is, as much as that there is a horizontal a horizontal expression or reception, a horizontal movement in sexuality, there is a vertical movement. So the moment that we reach out to the other, there is also, if things are free, a movement downwards. The circulation is building up. A circulation in the horizontal and in the vertical. And when we look to this circulation which is building up, it's in two directions. It's not a circulation, out, but there's also a circulation in from the pelvic area and out of the heart at the same time. And what you see, we see the bagel again, the circulation of the bagel. And it's not only from the pelvic, between the pelvic and the heart, but it's all over. It's like when we have a deep blend, there is also a blending, a circulation taking place of a blending of the bagels we've been working with. In this blending, there is a process of transformation taking place. And I'm not talking about making love. Making love can be part of this, just the meetings positioned between two people. Intimacy, togetherness, oneness, a vulnerable openness in which you let the other in, and at the same time the other is letting you in. There is a togetherness building up. And this togetherness, this intimacy, we cannot separate from sexuality. It's part of it. The physical bliss is part of this. If it's a friend, a child, that doesn't mean that we have lust towards our children. That's something else. And part of this fear is we make such a separation. And it's interesting to look to this movement as a vertical movement as well. Because, in this movement, there is a process of incarnation and a process of transformation, a process of refinement. And if we only look, we're at the level of the pelvic and the heart to start with. So the process of incarnation is a process in which love is expressed through every cell of the body. Love can be expressed to your toes, to your knees, through your fingers, through your hairs. It's an incarnation into the physical body of love, of joy, of pleasure, of care. And the other movement around is a refinement of lust, of vitality, of passion. So this refinement is moving beyond, where there is pure lust. It's so often that people relate to it, if you have lust, that you have to do something. So why do you have to do something? Why do you have to release when there is lust? To get rid of it. Because when we are horny or we feel lust, we have to get rid of our lust as quickly as possible because it's bad. It's bad to have feelings like this. So let's get rid of it. And with a lot of stories about it. If a man is horny, you have to do something about it because otherwise he will fuck around. Because there is no way he's able to control his horniness. It's like an animal, like a dog. But I think dogs are more able to control their horniness as a man, basically. Worse as a dog. So as a woman, you have to do something about it. So there's obligation. Again, we move into the whole traumatic state. As a female, to really be full of lust and desire, is something which is not good. You're a bad female like this. This cannot be expressed. This cannot be. Bad, 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 bad. A whore. Really bad. Not expressed. So because we're not allowed to express it, we have to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Horizontal expression. Release. No transformation. So what would happen if there is this strong desire, this strong horniness, this strong lust, and we just would kind of relax in it? We would just allow it. Not really necessary to give form. So then something is happening which is so frightening that it's better not to. Because what happens is that it transforms, and it transforms in a very deep form where sexuality transforms into sensuality. The whole nerve system is opening up. All the senses are opening up. A refinement from lust into sensuality. We get very sensual. And of course, when there is a split between sexuality and sensuality, this is difficult. There's a confusion. So to be sensual also means to be fully alive, fully in the here and now. We cannot be sensual and not being in the here and now. It's moving into the depth of experience, the depth of the physical experience. It's moving into physical bliss. It's being fully alive in the here and now. So to move to the depth of experience by itself means that there is a transformation again towards the heart. A deep movement into the blend between lust and love. Which basically belong together. And this is very much the natural movement of our sexuality, which can be expressed or not be expressed. So yesterday we talked about, ceilings and floors. And one of the most common floor ceiling is the ceiling floor around the diaphragm. Around the first depression point, solar plexus, this whole area. So if we are in the pelvic, and Georgie kind of showed this very beautiful, then the ceiling, it's a ceiling. If we're in the heart, it's a floor. If we look to the whole body, it's a division. It's a division between the lower part of the body and the upper part of the body. It's a division between the pelvic and the heart, the chest area. This is where love and sexuality cannot come together, where lust and love cannot come together. And again, this is so general and so much connected, with the whole state of survival we are in. So the state of survival, that means, basically that we stand most of the time on our diaphragm. That's the bottom, that's the basis. And that means that the center is moving from the heart up to the head. So everything is decided by the mind. Unless we move into our sexual expression, and then at once it's just happening. It's pure instinct. And of course, the mind can plan and plot about it and give an exact a framework in which it can be expressed, and it's right to express. And we want to express it. And when we have expressed it, we kind of, feel this emptiness and we want more to express it. And why is it so pleasant to express it? Even if it's not so much connected with our heart. It's so pleasurable to express it because, for the moment that we make love or we masturbate, we are not in our minds. We have a physical sensation. We're freed from the mind. It's an escape. And so often as an escape, an addiction, in a way. And again, this is a very shallow expression of what is possible in sexuality. And often when we get older and we express in this way a lot, it becomes more and more shallow. It's creating, often again a feeling of emptiness, loneliness, separation, isolation. Not the feeling of togetherness. So if we kind of look to this isolation, this loneliness, this separation, coming forward from the way we express our sexuality, and the way we express our sexuality so much connected, with a rupture which is deeply inside ourselves. And especially the rupture which is there, the ceiling, the floor which is there between heart and pelvic. The judgment, partly, which is there towards lust, towards our own sexuality, and the not knowing of our own sexuality, our own sexual identity. So it has to be different. It's the rupture between, what is in the depth as non-dual quality and how it's expressed into the world. And of course, this rupture is filled with unpleasant feelings. It is emptiness. And inside the emptiness is the density of the trauma itself. But the emptiness is filled with unpleasant feelings, loneliness, self rejection, insecurity, fear, rage, anger, especially towards, the other sex, the other gender. Feeling of being humiliated, feeling of being less, feeling of being abused, feeling of not having the right to exist at all, to be at all, feeling that something is demanded of you don't really want. All of this is in this rupture, these feelings. They can erupt the moment that this rupture is touched, together with loneliness, isolation, and of course, the tendency is to blame this outwards, to throw it on the other, to throw it on your sexual partner. Especially the loneliness, but with a taste of all the other stuff which is there as well. And partly this is why it's so important to communicate, to look into it. Because these are feelings which are connected with a rupture. They are not coming forward from the wholeness inside yourself. It's where we give, the other gender or our partner authority. Authority about how we have to act, what we have to be, who we have to be. And again, this is based on generations back. When we look to the horizontal, there's this expression of feeling, expression of lust, but we look to the vertical, what we see, it's all blend, it's coming together. When we are together with another human being, or with a tree, or with a butterfly, with a raindrop, and there is really an intimacy, a deep togetherness, then what's happening is that in this horizontal, this vertical movement which is taking place, this transformation which is coming forward from the blend between us and the other. Male and female are starting to come together. They start to blend. So the male part and the female part are starting to blend. A unity is created inside yourself. As much as there is a unity created outside of yourself. This is the basis of creation. This is the basis of bliss. This is the basis of sensuality, which is bliss. This is the awakening in the here and now. So when we look to the blend between male and female inside ourselves, this is a reflection with the blend with a partner. And it's important to understand that male and female inside ourselves, is in a male. The male has a female and a male. The female has a female and a male. So if it's two males or two females, it doesn't matter. Everything is built in male female polarity as well. It doesn't matter. Two humans meeting each other, there is this if there is a deep intimacy, and I'm not even talking about sexuality yet, there is a blend between male and female, between the receptive and the active taking place. And what's coming forward from this, what's born from this, is life. The experience of aliveness, pure life, pure being in the here and now. Because we're talking about how it could be and how it is, and then so often we move into structures of right and wrong, how it should be, and what is kind of bad and what is good. And it's very difficult to talk about sexuality and not to fall into this right wrong thing when you talk about the potential which is in all of us and the freedom which could be there, which is often lost. But it's the same, when you talk about how we could be as human beings, totally fulfilled, connected with the universe, being part of the universe, an expression of God from moment to moment. Because this is what we are as well, as many other things. So it is what it is. And so much we are in a state that we kind of, have a picture of how it should be. And if this is the holy guacamole of sexuality, or, something totally different without any sex, sexless, because that's the best way to be, sexless, then you're really holy guacamole. Or your holy guacamole when you're totally into your sensuality and kind of, open and kind of, mating in energy with every atom around yourself, which is possible. So it's all ideas, it's judgment, it's the mind kind of, giving a picture. But like with everything right now, it is what it is. It is how it is. And the beautiful thing of what you're describing, Marike, is the conscious awareness of your own reactions. That is how you are reacting right now. And the most difficult thing is to celebrate this as part of sexuality because it's all over. It's, the insecurity, the fear of rejection, the joy which is there in a moment, the awe which is in the moment, a reaching out of the heart, maybe the activation of the pelvic area as well. Although sometimes that takes much more time as the first impression, but not always. To really start in a way to be in the experience as it is, it's already so rich, so much.
Yeah.
And that's life. The insecurity is life. And it makes you vulnerable. Because, I remember that at a certain moment, okay, I tried to kind of, to every moment, uh, uh, what is coming forward to celebrate this as part of life. And I remember that there was this kind of girl I was attracted to, and I kind of stand in front of her and felt the insecurity and allowed the insecurity, and my knee starts to wiggle. I could hardly stand anymore. And at the same time, this is such a beautiful memory. It's so real, so true of the depth of feeling which takes place. So When you look to Tibetan Buddhism, which part of it is the school of Tantra, this is very much about celebrating life. And that means whatever experience is coming forward, I say it in a very simple way, is to allow the experience, to allow the depth of the experience. And it's so often when they say, Tantra is about sexuality, but Tantra is about the sensuality of life, to go to the depth of experience, because any experience is a meeting's position between male and female, between God and the goddess. Something is created. If it's anger, if it's pain, if it's insecurity, if it's bliss, if it's love, if it's compassion, it's all kind of is born in you. And it's born in a way, it comes forward, because there is this meeting position between polarities. There is a meeting position in male and female. It's where light and darkness are coming forward, where color is created and color is experience. Color is thought. Color is form. And the fear of losing control is one we can immediately put into the fear of death, losing control, or the fear of getting crazy, or the fear of rejection. It's all connected with each other, these collective fears. And basically, the deepest, which is here behind everything, is the fear of death, of course, is the fear of being fully alive. So, this is a deep fear. This is a collective fear. This is an epigenetic fear, totally intermingled with the fears of sexuality. And how do we deal with these fears? Not by kind of, demanding from our head with a lot of judgment, we need to let this go. This is it. But by kind of, honor the fear. There is a fear. By slowly, little step by little step. And this is exactly the work we're doing. Feeling at ease with the fear which is there, feeling at ease with the insecurity, feeling at ease with the fear of losing control. And the more we feel at ease, the more we become open, because also the fear of losing control is part of the whole experience. It's not either or. And this is, especially when we talk about sexuality, the either or is so strong. It's either this or that. And the movement into the end is so important. And this is there, and that is there, and this is possible, and that is possible. Because the end makes communication, intimacy possible. Intimacy is very difficult in an either or situation. The either or thinking is very much based on conditions. Conditions we place, agenda we have. And also the either or is part of the experience. Also, that is there. But to kind of, to take the either or as an and, as an attitude. Okay, it's and this, and that, and that, and that is taking place. And me, and you, and my experience, and your experience, and the shared experience, which is there. That's togetherness. Togetherness with yourself, togetherness with another, togetherness with the universe, togetherness with nature. It's everywhere. Because, in essence, when we talk about sexuality, we're talking about intimacy. We're not talking about sexual release. That's part of it, but that's not the whole story. And this is so often, which is the confusion that when we talk about sexuality, we talk about sexual release. 100,000 different ways to get your release, to get your fix. But that's such a small part, which is also part of our sexuality as human beings. It's so much bigger. It's in everything, in every little action. There is a blend between male and female. Every muscle movement, there is a blend between the push and the pull. In everything which is alive, life is only there because there is this constant blend between male and female. It's the source of life. It's how we create life between us. And that's how we are alive. And that's part of the incredible attraction which there is also towards sexuality, because it gives us the feeling of being alive for a few moments out of the brain, a few moments more connected with the physical body. And again, the attitude is so important, because it doesn't need to be a few moments if we are able to more celebrate whatever comes forward as an experience in life from moment to moment.